we're live now. So, yeah, the straight reading stuff we've never done. I've never really been a big fan of that, but I think it brings up a good point. So I'm going to go back to that in a minute. All right, let me pull it up on my phone so I can see some comments. All right, let's see here. All right. So, okay. We'll get started in just a second. Our fourth and final show today. Good afternoon, you delicious beings. Nasia. You're a delicious being. So we got Matthew Mournian back after just a couple of weeks ago. We had such a good time. I thought I said, look, let's just do it again. All right, let's see here. The problem is I can't remember a damn thing we talked about before. Now I remember.
Oh, that's okay. That happens every day in my world at this stage. Maybe it's just time. Maybe maybe it's the shift. Maybe it's us. Who knows? Yeah, but yeah, I feel you. Yeah, but thank you for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. This is what it's for. Let's see. Where are you at? I don't see you. Must be at the top. What were you just saying? No, I remember some of it. I do remember some of it.
At this stage, maybe it's just time.
We got sound.
Oh, nice.
We got Nasia, Heather Houston, Callie Louise Morgan down in Australia, Linda Dinkelman. Thank you for continued love and support and contributions, everybody. Michael Kilmer with his energy signatures, man. I like the way he communicates. Raquel Toombs, my dear friend. Big hugs and kisses to Ariel up in Canada. All right. So we got 22 people in the house. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And please, if these shows resonate with you, please share. This is how we stay above the algorithms that try to suppress us or whatever that is. I think we're beating it now. Hello, Monica Peterson. It's good to see everybody. Welcoming back. I just went blank.
It's the fourth show of the day. You're totally allowed to.
Matthew Mournian. Yeah. Oh my God. I just went blank. I was going to say Michael. Welcome back, Matthew Mournian. I don't know if you guys caught the first show, which was about 10, 12 days ago. You might want to go back and check it out. It's pretty interesting because we covered a huge, wide range of subjects. I can't remember all the details at the moment, but we had ET abduction. We had your personal experience. We had your wake up where you just totally disengaged from everything. Your practice, what you're doing, how you do it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then you sent a message, but let me give some backdrop here to Matthew. Matthew is a multidimensional healer, intuitive empath, and psychic reader specializing in clearing, balancing, and removing negative energetic attachments from the body. His current mission involves assisting with the activation and integration of the multidimensional frequencies that exist within each of us. Now, he's got a day-to-day energetic practice using a three-part protocol of tarot, spirit guide consultation, elements of hypnotherapy, and direct energetic transmission to release implantation, blockage, or trauma from the body. He's a lifelong ET contactee, former addiction counselor, and mental health professional. His work also extends to those seeking counseling for MyLab, ET abduction, SSP, MAPD programming, and survivors of ritual abuse. At this stage of our collective and individual evolution, his primary focus is on healing and clearing the negative energetic threads that block us from truly knowing ourselves and realizing our life's mission. Let's talk about some of this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. Let me share this through the network real quick. And we haven't, I had somebody send me a note today. Can you get Corey Good on?
Oh, nice.
David Wilcock. I've had people say, can you get Teal Swan on? Can you get this person on or that person on? These people that have got, quite a bit of exposure or popularity on YouTube and such. And I struggle with that a little bit. I'd love to have some big names on here. Why not? 900 shows. The way I look at it, the way Morgan and I have received this is that this platform is a platform for all the voices of the mother. All right. So I don't really judge things on how many YouTubes, how many likes, you know, and all that stuff. I think we're all creative geniuses. We're all the same, every one of us. And the more of these stories that get out, the better. But what I was getting at is some of the off MSM, you know, platforms like alt news, and then YouTube, Facebook, under the radar stuff. If you go onto the stuff like that, the type of topics, Corey Good, Jordan Maxwell, these different people, David Icke and all this, you know, they talk about a lot of this stuff that's a little bit sensational. But at the same time, I think when we hear it from people, I want to say normal people or people that aren't in the headlines every day, I think it carries a lot of weight. So you're a lifelong ET contactee, whatever.
That is my understanding. Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you also, as a practitioner, one of your specialties, which I'd like to get into, because I have a feeling it will affect some people, because it may not be the same exact thing by the description, but energetically it is. And I'm talking about my lab. I'm talking about ET abduction. I'm talking about SSP, MAP. If you could explain what these things, these energetic impressions made in the physicality have done to people, do to people, and what you do in your work to remove them. Yeah. And why is that important? You know, how does these things affect us, and we can be unconscious of them, and how can we remove them with a practitioner or without?
That's a hell of a question. I love that.
It's a bunch of questions.
I know, right? Okay. Okay. So we'll go back to the start of that. I would say with respect to the ET contact, or rather the phenomenon of that from, say, maybe like an everyday, just normal, you know, day-to-day perspective, it's my belief that a majority of us, and that'll usually be maybe 1 to 2 or more individuals within like a primary family group or like an immediate family, will be involved on some level with an ongoing process of having contact, in that will be monitored, checked on, interacted with. Some of us will make agreements prior to coming into this life that it will happen in ways that will be unknown for us. Some of us will have other experiences where it will become more conscious later on. In my opinion, I think in like coming into this realm, the phenomenon of that sort of contact is something that many of us will experience in some form or another, whether it's a dream, a light in the sky, a UFO, or an actual contact experience. I think it's incredibly common. And in the coming years, we're going to begin to discover just how common it truly is. That said, there's many different types. And I would say that in my work, most recently, the things that I've been called on to deal with respect to the ET presence contact, or sometimes what people call implants or like implantation, which is a very widely used loophole of a term right now. It has a lot of like connotations around what those are. I would say when I encounter what I would identify as a ET presence within my work, it's most often usually people just trying to understand the nature of their experiences, trying to look at it from a number of perspectives, of whether it's through tarot, whether it's through kind of like a direct like question and answer, sort of like a session that I'll do with individuals. I call it like a spirit guide, like consultation thing. Or whether that's through somewhat of like a focus session in terms of like an energy work or like an activation, where we kind of go into like a theta state and sort of try to either unpack memories or see what kind of lies underneath the surface energetically for people. And oftentimes within that state, other pieces of information will come out. But I would say usually it's in trying to help people understand what's happening to them through the lens of an experience that's most of the time expansive and sometimes a bit frightening, but there's also some of the negative aspects as well. And I don't know if that really answers your question to start out, but it seems to be just sort of seeking like a confirmation and understanding about what's happening. So
I think, on one hand, I think on one hand, the people, well, first of all, it sounds like that it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like a lot of these experiences that we have experiences that we have, at least up to this point, aren't stuff that we remember necessarily. I mean, like they call it swiping the memory or whatever the case is. But it seems to be happening more and more. We just had one, Morgan and I just had one 10 days ago, since the last time I talked to you.
So what happened? What happened? Tell us. So, or maybe you've already talked about it, but
no, I have talked about it, but I'd love to get your okay. So we're actually connecting, and we do that mostly in the bed, right? So when we lay down, we hold hands and we start connecting. And we went through this process, which really was a sacred sexual vibration. It was not a didn't look like 3D sex, that type of thing. It wasn't like that. It was something else. There was more involved. Our teams were involved. I was looking at her back. I was seeing sacred geometry. I was seeing light language. I was getting messages. So it was something that was above my human understanding, right? But I knew. So I look over my shoulder against the wall at the head of the bed, and there is there's a short gray, a zeta. Okay. Now, at the time, this is a very beautiful experience. I look over there, I thought, what the F are you doing here, man? You know? But it was more of a high level telepathic communication. And when I looked at him, there was like a rectangle, almost like a barcode on his. I can't remember if it was on his forehead or if it was right here somewhere, but it was on his body, and it obviously wasn't part of his body. And I said to him in my mind, I said, well, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm assisting you, the masculine energy, in clearing something, but I'm also observing and learning from you all, both of you, through something to do with emotions. Yeah. We don't, we don't have these emotions, so we're trying to learn something here. It didn't feel threatening. I did tell him, you can go ahead and leave now. Which he did. He did.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah. So I just look at this stuff, and we talked about this last time a little bit about the one that we saw on the walk and the team. But I guess my point is now in my work that I'm doing, it seems like something's really shifted since 2019. And one of the things that seems to have shifted is that there was and I don't know if this is accurate. I just want to see what's going on with your practice, your observance. But it seems like the activation thing, the removal thing, some of the stuff that really served us the last 3, 4, 5 years, is kind of like something's happened. Like, I don't know if it's everybody is self-service now. Are these practitioners showing them the way? Are you seeing an influx of some type of new energy with your clients that makes them more aware, that makes them more self-sufficient or self-healing or whatever?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this may have to do with something that it seems like a lot of people are talking about right now. And what it feels like is a very accelerated and rapid wave of karmic purging. It's like this purgative stage that we're in as individuals and as a collective, in which, as I'm sure you're painfully aware, and probably everybody that's watching this thing by now, all of our issues, all of our wounds, all of the core things are being just pulled up to the surface and shown right in our face so that we'll deal with it. What happens with, at least through my experience, is those sorts of experiences have been the fundamental catalyst toward positive change and opening up elements of, say, my mission, what I meant to do here, maybe abilities, maybe awarenesses, which for a lot of people and I realize this is something that we talk about every day, but we're in this 4D, 5D shift. And for a lot of us that are kind of generally aware of what that is, we'll understand that our consciousness is in, 5, or, we could just say, the 5th, density experience at the moment. But what we are going through on the physical plane is this 4th density period in which we are integrating those energies into our physical body. And so what's happening is, as we're dealing with this purging thing that's going on, this karma that's happening, this rapidly moving stream of time, which is so incredibly accelerated, we're also coming into a greater awareness. And so what happens with that is we understand that part of our journey here is to heal our own wounds. And so I'm seeing on an everyday basis people becoming more aware of what's happening and taking a greater role in trying to heal that in and of themselves. I think that's part of the course for this whole ascension thing, is that we're each going to be called to do that. And maybe that's a roundabout way of saying, yes, I absolutely agree. And I would say that, like, one of the greatest things I can do at this stage for people is literally show them, like, open the door and say, this is how we do this. I know that you can do this. It is within each of us. And then hopefully we can, you know, like, carry that forward into this, like, event or like ascension or whatever it is we're all working for.
Let's go through that. We've talked,
I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. We've talked to a lot of practitioners, and for some reason, I'm getting this from last night, talking to Morgan on the phone, right? As we were talking about,
I saw that actually. I was watching you guys last night. So,
last night,
yeah,
well, we had a conversation afterwards.
Oh, right.
She was that last night? I can't even remember. But anyway, it was last night we were talking. And she said, you know, because we communicate with the energy that is Soulogy, right? It communicates with us. And basically she had gotten, hey, you guys have got to step it up another notch. You know, it's time to, and this again is reflective of the collective too, right? We're just a picture of it. Step into your roles 100%. And she said something to me as we were discussing it. She said, the first step in transformation is understanding there's an imbalance. And I was like, what, you know, like, what do you, but I get it. I get it. Like, the first thing is to know, right? You got to know in order to transform. And maybe that's the energy that I'm talking about and I was referring to. Yeah. But I think people are starting to admit instead of resist, go in instead of project. And say, yes, I have an imbalance. Yes, I'm not. Yeah. So back to what I was saying, we've had a lot of practitioners on here. How do you show somebody? How do you open the door for a client? How do you take them through the door of physician heal thyself eventually? Because the old paradigm, the old yogi guru paradigm is, you're going to come see me week after week, month after month after month, you know. Yeah. Now there seems to be a different frequency, which is you're going to come see me 1, 2, 3 times. That's it. It's done.
Some people only ever need once.
Yeah.
Just
one time. How do you do that? I mean, like, if you I know everyone's different, but how do you start with somebody?
That's a really good question. For me, I think that journey started with learning what my own energy felt like. What it felt like to move energy through my body, the difference between my frequency and someone else's frequency. And I think for a lot of us that are in, like, this awakening like period, or in some stage of that, we're just now, like, coming into awareness of an energetic current within the body. So one of the things I like to do in my sessions is we will go into somewhat of a focused state, whether that be through a hypnotic induction or some form of, like, a breathing practice, or just like a simple sort of like a meditation thing. Usually we'll go down maybe into theta. What happens is when we go down into these like vibratory states, as elements of our subconscious open up, barriers will drop, certain kind of like, elements of our ego will kind of fade away. And what happens is when we go into this focused state, we then begin working with sensory elements of our body. Each of us will have like a primary sense. You might be a visual learner, you might be kinesthetic, which is by hand, you might be auditory. Well, each of us have at least one of the primary senses that we can start with. So we go into this focused state and somewhat of like an astral, sort of like a shamanic state, and we begin to find out, what is your frequency? What does it feel like if you were to breathe through an area of our body? Because that's one of the ways that we can open up our chi, open up, say, like a meridian or a chakra, focus the breath on those areas. So what I do is I take people through a process of breathing through an area, attaching a sense to it, whether that's hearing, sight, touch, whatever it is, deciding what the color feels like, deciding every aspect of whatever your experience is, and then deeply like personalizing that. And what we find is when we make the process our own, whether that be through, say, like an energy work session where we're really, you know, opening up those frequencies, or whether it be through like a ritualistic situation, the greatest thing we can do is to make it an individual process. So I would like to say, you know, like the way that I've been doing this and helping people open up to their own energy is making that in like a uniquely individual thing for everyone. I find that when we approach it from that standpoint, things open up a lot easier, because a lot of times you'll hear people in, say, like a meditation video or on a workshop, and they'll be like, oh yeah, man, all you got to do is like imagine a sphere in your mind. That's all you got to do. You just imagine the sphere. And like, say for me in the beginning, I was like, well, how? Like, what kind of a sphere? How do I do that? I needed some sort of an instruction or a sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, because I remember working with Morgan shortly after I met her, right? And I was connected. I just was not embodying, you know, it into my physical experience. And I remember one day I was on a walk. One night I was on a walk, and we were talking, and she said, you know, whatever the issue was, whatever the energy that was present, she said, do you want to identify it? Do you want to clear it? Whatever the case is. And I said, yeah. And so she said, okay, so pull your higher self up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like, how do you do that?
Right.
And so I went and sat down on this picnic bench, and I said, okay, how do you do that? She said, well, just pull it up. Ask your higher self to stand before you. Yeah. And of course, my human mind was like, oh, it can't be that simple, man. I mean, you know. And so I just said it, and then there it was. Yeah. And so is that the personalizing that you're talking about, where the client or the person takes the driver's seat basically, and you're just guiding them? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. I would say a really good example of that would be the act of, say, like pulling up an element of the higher self. Whereas maybe, you know, another way you could approach that would be through like a phone call or a question answer session, or some sort of uniquely individual element to you or me. For me, I believe, that would be a very good example of that. But also along with that, I think it can come in a number of ways. I think the whole idea is to understand that, number one, you are already within that state. You are already like connected to whoever or like whatever element of yourself that you need to be. I think it's in finding our own unique expression of that is really the key. And I might have just like said that in a roundabout way 2 times in a row, but I agree. I would say that is that's a very good example. So, yeah.
And so then when it comes to the second part of it, where you're getting into, I guess, actually scanning the body, reading the body, looking for, and again, these are all more metaphors or names or labels for energy, but implants, blockages, you know, whatever, DNA that needs to be refined or whatever the case is. When you get into that phase, how does that work? How do you get the client involved in that? How does that retain that same uniqueness to them?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure that I can accurately explain that from an outer perspective. What I find is that when I'm in this state with a client and we break through kind of like the boundaries of like the ego and like our conscious state, when we enter into a sacred space, kind of go into like a meditative or like a focused sort of, oftentimes it's when we begin to reach the level of theta, in which sort of doors open within our subconscious. Now, for me, experientially in that state, when I'm with a client, oftentimes I'll be taking a breath in as if I was breathing in their energy. I'll be looking at what shows up in my mind's eye. I will be relying on a number of different cues. So in that space, what I tend to do is find an area within the body that will vibrate with an emotion, a blockage, a feeling, sometimes an image. I'll call the client's attention to that area, and then we'll breathe into it, feel into it. At this stage, oftentimes they will begin to experience some form of a sensation, whether it just be a physical thing, but oftentimes it tends to be an emotion or a memory. What happens is when we move chi or energy into these specific areas of our body, say like a chakra or like in like a meridian structure, it will attach to an emotion. And when you move energy into that space, it begins to unpack in the body. Some people will have a memory and experience. They might just see an image, or they may feel a physical thing leaving. When we call attention and focus energy in that way, one of the ways we will experience that in the session is by, I guess, whatever that sensory thing is. And it could be a number of things. I'm not sure if I answered that accurately, but it's, yeah. So
let me, yeah, no, I'm with you, because we're having two conversations here. One's up here. And one's up. Right. So, okay. So let me put it this way. Okay. Would you say that when you do your work, and I think this would probably apply to other practitioners, many of them, would you say that you're merging with your client, that you're both opening up in I guess in purity and unconditional love, and with the openness to expand and such, that where you're actually, is that how we pick up on each other? Is that how you're able to tap into what might be a blockage or an implant or that type of thing?
I like that question. I believe on a certain level, yes, there is an energetic merging that will take place. For me specifically, the process that I try to go through came about through my understanding of what I believe are certain elements of like a fourth, basically an energetic construct is an environment that can be like created in an astral realm, in which I believe you're either merging with an energy or you're in some sort of like a contained space with another person's sort of astral self. What happens is when we enter those spaces, either through intention, through some form of ritual, through our own, say, like protocol or like our practices, I believe that begins either some form of a merging or almost like it's like a conversation that happens on a different level. I find that that's where kind of like the heart chakra tends to open up, which in my opinion, the heart chakra is going to be one of the primary movers for, say, like a, you know, mind-based, like conferencing, you know, that psychic energy that's shared. It tends to come from the heart field when I feel that frequency within individuals. So what I think is happening, we are like merging on a certain level, but it seems to take a number of forms. So I'm not even sure I can accurately answer that, to be honest with you, but I believe that's part of it.
Well, we're you know, we've got one foot in both.
Yeah, so, I know.
So
right?
it's not gonna make. But Monica D. Benware says, love that answer. So
yeah, thank you.
People get it, and I've done enough of these shows to see that when they're connecting and when they're not, when they're understanding. So let me ask you a question. The name of your website is Remember Your Mission.
Yes.
Right. Why did you name it that?
Oh, I love that. Thank you for asking me that. Specifically in 2016, I talked about this a little bit last time I was here. that year I experienced probably what I now understand to be, it's like a soul braiding, a walk-in experience in which I had some sort of an unfolding of what I now believe to be a future version of me from another timeline that I consciously integrated with. In my opinion, for a lot of us, we might end up finding out after this incarnation is over that we were the ones guiding ourselves in this journey. So what I believe what happened in my case is that I ended up making contact with kind of a future timeline aspect of Matthew. And what that led to was this series of activation experiences in which I began to have sort of like a conference. I would be standing in my backyard at the time doing like Qigong, just kind of hanging out, going through this totally bizarre like transformation. I was about to leave my job and my marriage. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. It was a very, very strange it was a strange experience in which I was literally told in my mind while doing this like exercise in my backyard, Matthew, you have a mission. Yeah. It is time for you to remember. And what I understood that to be was the higher self counsel, the versions of me that existed throughout the ages, past and present and current, kind of like coming back into this body and activating this element of me that I chose to do or be in this life. I would like to say now that I understood it at that moment, and I didn't. What I knew is that I needed to change, and that sort of kicked off a series of events that here we are about 2.5 years later, and I'm sitting here with you. But yeah, I was told I had a mission, and that, see, for me, it is now all about awakening that in everyone else and helping people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So it correlates too with what your mission is in terms of how you serve.
Absolutely.
So you're looking to assist in that. And you know, we've had I say quite a few. I mean, my wife is one, her friend that was on here a week ago is another. And there's been quite a few others over the last year or so that have come on the show and talked about being a spiritual midwife. Oh, so wow. Almost like what you're talking about is like you're assisting, you know, because what is it? What's the adage that a healer can only take you to the places that they have been, right?
I agree with that for the most part,
right? Yeah. So you have experienced this assimilation or integration with multiple aspects of yourselves, which was activating within yourself, which was basically something to your own admission that you didn't understand. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, but you did know one thing, and that's you had to change and you had to start listening, following this guidance. So you're essentially taking people to the same place to bring them to the same point that you're at. Is that right?
Absolutely. I believe that was exactly what I signed up for at the beginning of this whole thing. And that can come in a number of forms for whoever it is. Some people may only need a reading. Some people may only need a bit of guidance. Some people may need help, you know, opening up chakras. Some people may need help, like releasing an aspect of like a trauma in their life. Some people will literally have some form of like an implantation that will exist in their field that will also have to be dealt with. It comes in a number of forms for everyone, but yes, absolutely.
I thought of you a couple of days ago. Nice. I was, you know, I get off this thing and if I'm not talking to Morgan and we've been separated now for a few days. And so that's a little bit of, you know, an impact on the human.
Right. Yeah. I heard you talking about that.
Yeah. And so, I'll turn on YouTube, cause I don't really read and I'll look for stuff, you know, I'll just try to follow the guidance and look for stuff. And I came across something a couple of days ago and I was thinking about you. I thought, oh, I'm glad I'm going to be talking to him. And it was a David Icke deal.
All right.
And I don't really watch much of David Icke anymore. I love him. I think he woke a lot of people up and he still does. Okay. But I'm not really into the doom and gloom anymore. I think we're to the point of empowerment now that that's a distraction that's disempowering, and we're greater than that. And he's even done stuff on that, and that's okay. But this particular thing was on We Are Change. And I don't remember the guy's last name. The guy that does We Are Change is mostly political, Luke something, right? Really cool guy. But they were talking about consciousness. David Icke was in a hotel, and Luke was there with him, and they were talking in this specific soundbite about consciousness. And I'm going to go back and watch it again. But one of the things that he said that really jumped out at me was that obviously we are consciousness, whether we have a physical vehicle or not, whatever, right? Whether it's multidimensional, whatever. But in terms of being conscious, in terms of what we're aware of, and he said our consciousness is based on our beliefs. And I thought, whoa. And that's kind of like that thing you talked about when you got all that information, like you didn't really know everything that was being said, but you knew you had to make a change. And so I thought about that. I thought, okay, what are my beliefs? And I started to think about all of this intel that we're all receiving and how we fought it and said, am I really hearing that? Did I really see that? Am I crazy? You know, and of course you've worked in an industry where you've been not only been able to observe that in yourself, but other people. Right. So, so, I mean, what does that mean to you? I mean, what is our belief system if we know that the system of belief that's come externally has been programming and conditioning? We're now starting to get this high level intel, and it is formulating a consciousness that maybe we've never been there before. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Yeah. You know, I believe that by and large, we have actually been here before on some form or some level, on some plane, that we're quite literally going through the same like process again. For me, at least on the timeline that I'm on, it seems to correspond with some sort of a repeat of the Atlantean timelines that I existed on. Also something having to do with like an Egyptian a lineage as well. But that said, with respect to our system of, you know, I would say those act as a filter toward this experience that we're having, in that in the beginning, like our beliefs will sort of guide and alter and shape the information that we're able to take in. It will guide us away from certain things. It can be a blockage. I think as we come to it on like a collective level, this has been changing to such a degree that, you know, great change is happening. Now, to the extent to which, say, like our belief system is still affecting like reality, I think it's everything, especially when like you take into consideration that that's literally how we will, you know, that's quite literally how we are shaping time, is through our beliefs and what we all acknowledge as a collective as being real or not real, or happening or not happening. And so when we look at people, say, like David Icke, I really value his information. I think that he comes from like a perspective that is probably a lot more severe based on the experiences that he's had. He was a key individual for me in understanding.
And many people.
Yeah, he was a key individual for me in the beginning, and I think he still is. But yeah, I don't know if that even answers the question, or if that even was a question. But
you don't have to keep saying that. Your answer, you're doing fine. The numbers just keep going up. But, you know, and that's what I find really fascinating is, you know, I kind of have a problem with the bookshelf law of attraction. And I'm not picking on The Secret, and I'm not picking on, but I kind of have a problem with this whole, you know, affirmation, you know, like, you know, you say it. And it's so weird because there's always two meanings to everything. But what I'm getting at, it's like this new belief system of old is coming in at this high level here. And so many of us, really all of us, have been experiencing this for so long, and we always shut it down. Now there's a collective community building, and people are saying, oh, I'm not the only one that's crazy. Oh, I'm not the only one this has happened to. But this high level thing that's coming in is the basis of this expanding consciousness. I personally believe that we're expanding into a place the universe has never been. I don't have to be attached to that. It's just my own thing, right? It sounds good. It's romantic, right?
I love that idea, actually.
Right?
I'm totally,
you know, but the thing is, I'm going, okay, how can I grab that? How can we grab onto that non-physical intel coming in and, you know, bring it in, embody it, and expand it? And you know, I know this isn't, you know, what we were talking about, but I love you. I love the, you know, well, you just go for it intuitively. So I just feel like, you know, bring it up to you and see what you got to say about it.
I would say that at this case, or rather at this stage for a lot of us, embodiment is key. And what I mean by that is allowing ourselves to embody the most genuine aspects of ourselves and our experience, our life, what we're going through, what we're transmuting, what we're healing, and especially what we are in the process of, you know, especially what we are now shaping ourselves into, whether it's as an individual or as like a collective. And so, you know, for me, that means accepting that I am a multi-dimensional being that's having this rapidly unfolding series of experiences. You know, I would say like the best thing that I can do in that stage is like continue to walk through my process as like a genuine being and do the best that I can to express that to the people that I work with and just assist them in whatever it is that I can do with that. And, you know, I would say in like taking into consideration the idea of like this consciousness shift, there's this saying that goes around that says we're literally all just walking each other home. And it's kind of a cheesy saying at this stage, but I believe that's quite literally what, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me throw this one at, you and go a little bit personal on it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's for some reason, I think that's how we grab that intel and bring it in a body and expand it. But so you've discovered your mission. I've discovered my mission. We're serving, right? At the same time, we're having this. I mean, there's a reason we're 99% conscious in this part, this human experience, and linked in that, you know, whatever that percentage is, to these multidimensional aspects and these past, future, parallel memories, whatever you want to call it. So that tells me that this is pretty freaking important. Todd Medina is pretty freaking important to the universe. Matthew is pretty freaking important to the universe. Otherwise, we wouldn't, it's not about, we're not that dumbed down. No. So at the same time, we find this mission, which is serving this more prolonged mission, this more prolonged evolution or expansion of the universe. We also have this Todd, this Matthew. So with that in mind, where does desire come in? Where does I want to be with Morgan? I want to live here. I want to experience this. I want to experience that. I'm Matthew. I would like to have a whatever you're. I'm not saying I'd like to have a partner. I'd like to, you know what I mean? Because we all know that we can be like an ostrich with our head in the sand and serve, because that's a remnant of the 3D paradigm where we worked and forgot about ourselves. We're here to remember to thine own self be true. Yeah. So where does desire meet the mission? You know, where does our free will become so aligned with universal will that it's all so perfect and fluid and beautiful and in the flow, you know? Wow. And that's not even a question. I'm just like,
I love it though. I think that like our desires are an essential aspect of this existence in that they shape our directions, they shape our choices, they shape the things and the places that we go and who we interact with. And in my opinion, when I chose to come down here and have some sort of a 3D life again as Matthew, I chose this incredible, like whatever it was, series of like catalyzing events that has, you know, like led us to this moment. And I think that all the desires that I've had, and even as a collective, I think those are essential to kind of guiding us through a process that is uniquely ours. In my case, I know for a fact I chose this life. I chose to incarnate. I chose my parents. I literally chose what I was going to look like. I chose a series of events that were going to take place in my life. And so with the knowledge that I've gained about, you know, just my own, you know, path, I would say that having that call to do or be or change or feel or whatever it is, I think is key, at least for me in this existence. It's a drive. So
great commentary there. And so I look at this because we spend so much time beating ourselves up. And I'm not talking about beating ourselves up for the things that we did and, you know, the things that we weren't aware of. I'm talking about having a desire. I'm talking about, you know, having a desire to experience pleasure in whatever way that you want to. I want to be with this woman. I want to go to this place in the world. I want to go to the pyramids, whatever it is. I want to fly my own airplane, whatever it is. And it's like we were like, oh, you know, in the old, that's why I have a little problem with the Far East philosophy of, oh, well, you know, we're nothing, to the point of nihilism, you know? And it's like you said, our desire is like, it's part of this journey. It's like trying to disengage or disassociate from the ego. You know, that's a gift. The ego is the universal equalizer. It's been our friend. We haven't always liked it, but you can't kick it out of bed. You know what I mean? It's the flip side of the soul, man. You know what I mean? It's like a two-way mirror. But I mean, the thing is, the human is the hero. I mean, the human is the hero. Otherwise, why the hell would we be 99% conscious when we're human? You know, I mean, there's got to be some gold way beyond our comprehension in the potential of the experience that we can have here and now that we can't even begin to fathom. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
This is real-time intel through a conversation between two people that just happens to be put out there. But I'm telling you, every single person that's here, 56, 57 people, is part of this. That's that space that you're talking about that you create when you work with somebody that you said there's really no words for it. Whatever that is, Abraham Hicks calls it this vortex, right? Other people call it this or that. But you know what, man? I mean, that's the power. It's that power of that non-physical, multidimensional, you know, coming into this conscious state of the human, the divine human. We can do anything. Going back to what I said to start this part of the show was desire. You know, consciousness. We are controlling this consciousness. We have the free will and the direct main line into infinite intelligence, universal will, to go in there and put this into some kind of sacred geometric equation and expand this beyond all get out. And it's never been done before. That's how I feel about it.
I love that. I love that. I agree. I think this is absolutely the most amazing time that any of us could have ever chosen to come down here and live as a human. I would say if you're like one of the people that are on this here show at the very moment, you will probably agree. And I say that with full knowledge of all the chaos and all the madness and all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world. By my understanding, and once again, I go back to my experience and the experience of the people that I have worked with, is that we chose this. We chose to come here, especially with the knowledge that we were about to experience this great, massive shift, that we were going to get to be a part of this process of the liberation and this whole thing that's happening. So, I mean, like, I agree with you. This is quite literally the most amazing time to be alive. So,
And see, and here we go back to what David Icke was talking about. I'm going to have to post it on my wall after I watch it again. But here we go back to, which really intrigued me. So our consciousness is based on our belief. Now, in his explanation to the host of We Are Change, he was saying they're implanting our beliefs, right? You know, don't get me wrong. David Icke believes in the power of the soul, all right? But he was saying, you know, they're implanting our consciousness, basically. So here
that is actually possible on like a number of levels. But I'm sorry. So
no, I totally agree with that. But I think we're beyond that point. It's 2019 now. I think we're beyond the stories and the labels. We don't need any more proof. We don't need to externally focus on the Vatican or the CIA or PSYOPs or fourth dimensional archons or whatever the case is. We are the power.
Absolutely.
Pure and simple. So if that's the case, then we're actually molding consciousness. We're actually the God goddess saying, okay, I had to go into the abyss in order to come out, memory wiped out, get it back through my infinite, you know, my infinite capacity. And now I'm going to, now look, Michael Kilmer just said, remember, dance. Now I'm going to dance. Now I'm going to dance. This is the new good book. This is the new good book. This is what's being laid down for the next cycle. So let's get jiggy with it. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah. No, that is, man. That's absolutely, that's it. Like that's our mission at this time. I would say that what I would add to that is that we are that event, like quote unquote, that everyone talks about. Everybody's waiting for like a solar flash or, you know, some ship to come down. And my God, I would love for a ship to come down. But really, in my opinion and experience, you are creating that within yourself.
Yes, man.
So
I saw a sister that I absolutely freaking adore. I absolutely adore. And I do not doubt anybody's experience.
Right.
Period. You know? And I saw it today talking about that flash. It's going to happen. It's going to look like this. Bullshit. Bullshit. The you know, whatever we receive from universal, that is the you, me, we, and it, is meant first and foremost for that individual.
Right.
So whatever it looks like, feels like, tastes like, you know, whatever that is for the individual. Now, is there some type of parallel that parlays into a collective wisdom, you know, codes that you can, you know, emit to your brothers and sisters? Yes. But my point is you're right, man. We are the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're sitting around here chasing our tail like a dog, only to find out that we are that, right? So that's what intrigued me, and that's why it reminded me of you, because it was what, you know, a week after I talked to you, and then 2 or 3 days before we're going to talk again, and I thought, you know what, our consciousness is based on our beliefs, but you can't go out there and say, I am this, I am this, I am this. I'm going to program myself, and therefore it will be. No, it's not like that. It's like we have to be in this space between conscious and unconscious, physical and non-physical. We pull it together, and I'm convinced more and more every day it's through conversations like this, whether they be viewed by 50 people or nobody.
Right.
I believe it happens here when we just convey that to each other, and it's I don't want to say make it up as you go, but in a spontaneous, in respect to a spontaneous energy.
Right. We are, though, at the same time, literally making our reality in this moment. We agree on this as a collective, and so there it is. And I mean, yeah, man, I'm absolutely with you. This is
it's just wow. This is beautiful. Now we're also in transition.
Yeah.
This is also 2019, the year of collaboration, co-creation, and supporting of each other. So I want you to take, before we run out of time, tell people about remembering your mission,
right?
Your website. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry.
And no, you got it.
Tell them about what
remember
you do.
Your mission.
Remember your mission. Tell them about what you do, and whatever you want. Yeah, just the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Basically, what I do at this stage is work with the ongoing opening of whatever the energy forms, sources, activations, elements are within our energy body. For a lot of us, that can be letting go of an emotional blockage, say like a trauma, implantation, opening up areas of our energy body, like a meridian or chakra, pushing through energy, awakening aspects of the self, a number of things. People will tend to come to me primarily for like a clearing, just like an energy clearing. And it tends to take one of those turns into which we'll open up or invariably work with an area of the body that will allow us to experience some sort of a release, a change, like a progression, or at least as a mental and emotional openness, or say like clarity to know what it is we need to do in our life to make those changes. So what we're doing is just opening up aspects of the self and kind of like empowering ourselves by opening up energy, into just, moving toward that most optimal timeline. And so that's a bit of a mouthful, but basically that can come in the form of, say, like a tarot reading and like an energy reading, a clearing. I do a number of things at this stage. And so I would say probably if you are a person that's trying to understand those elements of yourself, if you're trying to awaken your intuitive abilities, one of the things you can do is I'm holding a multi-dimensional tarot and intuitive activation workshop at the end of this month, starting on March 31st. And what it is 2 3-hour classes. I'm doing one of them on the 31st and then one a week immediately after that on April 4th. And what it is an instruction on how to use tarot specifically to look at your chakras, elements of emotion in the body, to like diagnose or to look at, learn about elements of yourself and other people, especially for the purpose of healing and with working with, I can't say the word, multi-dimensional aspects of the self. So that's on March 31st. I would say that's a really good entry point into kind of like activating all of those things in your own life. But yeah, like people can like check that out on my website, or you can also like book a private session with me through there as well. But yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Are you doing this? I love you, man. You're so modest and humble, man. But are you doing this? Is this what starts at the end of the month? Is it in person or is it online?
Oh, right. This is over Zoom. So people can literally do one session or the other. Like you can do both of them. We're all going to be meeting up over Zoom, and we'll have like a recording afterward. It's basically just kind of like a huge class that I'll be putting on, for people that are trying to open up elements of their own like energetic aspects. So.
Yeah. And let me just say this, we 900 episodes, 3,000 productions. We have not, when I say we, I represent this energy, which is a mirror of the universe, adding frequencies to an ever expanding vibration. We call it Soulogy. It's not a cult. It's just the energy. It's the universe, period. It's pure love. It's unconditional love. It's pure intention. Not really, because we have to integrate. I have to integrate. Morgan has to integrate the human part. Don't really advocate this or that, but I will say this. We're talking about an energy here with Matthew, and there are many, many others that have come here with the same energy, including today. Okay. And that is that, like he said earlier, some of my clients come one time and they're done. Morgan says, I got a max of 3. After 3, I won't see you again. You know what I mean? So the bottom line is, this is about self-empowerment. And sometimes we need a little help, right? Yeah. Sometimes that help comes in the paradoxical way of the universe from someone that might be, from our perception, at a lower vibration or a higher vibration. I got news for you. We're made up of an infinite number of vibrations. Some of those vibrations, some of those frequencies, Matthew's higher than me, and vice versa. So I think we need to support each other. That's part of what 2019 is all about. It's about faith. It's not about the old 3D transactions. It's about equal energy exchange. So I would encourage you all to look at the prospect of visiting Matthew's website. If it resonates, reach out to him. Let's support our brother and support each other. Okay. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. And I know that Morgan and I, as I'm looking at 55 viewers, 50 reactions, 115 comments, that I know that we'll be seeing you in the physical sometime later this year.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
It's only 2 hours. Well, what, 5.5 hours away on a plane? So
something like that. You never know, but yeah, man, I'd love that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for having me back.
Take care, and I'll see you again. We'll get back. Get you back in here next month. We're moving to an automated scheduling system, so that's going to make it a lot easier. Nice. And so we'll see you again next month.
Absolutely.
At least once or twice. You take care, brother.
All right, brother. And thank you very much, everyone.